Klay Thompson scoring 20 points on 8 of 13 shooting despite suffering a high ankle sprain in Game 1. Chris, you cover this team, you know, all the time. Can you tell us, leading up to the game, how did Klay manage this? Because we saw him limping the day before, like actually limping.
Yeah, we all see him walking around Oracle Arena. It looked like there was no way he'd go from limping to the next day to being able to do what he did in Game 2. It got to the point that Draymond called
This was an amazing story. Can you tell people that didn't hear it?
Draymond before the game didn't think Klay was going to be playing because of how he looked and how he was walking. He called Nick Young and said, Nick, we're going to need you to play big minutes.
He was like, big minutes for you, buddy.
And Nick was like, oh, well, okay, all right.
Oops. I mean, that's amazing, right? And so we always talk about Klay being the underrated member of this foursome to begin with, just because he's so laid back. But the Iron Man aspect of this, he's played 100 straight playoff games in a row for the Warriors, which is incredible. And they needed him last night, and they needed him in Game 1, frankly.
Yeah, no, absolutely. He's, you know, I have this conversation all the time with Eddie Johnson on SiriusXM. And, you know, Eddie feels the same way as I do, is that people don't respect Klay enough. If Klay had his own team, he'd be Reggie Miller.
Right.
He'd be averaging 25 a game. His team would go to playoffs. He'd have division titles, unless it was in the Pacific.
Right.
He'd be, but because he's here, and that's why he's the perfect guy for this team.
Sure.
Because other guys with that talent would probably be impatient and be like, I'm not getting enough credit. Man, they keep talking about KD and stuff. What about me?
Yeah.
But Klay doesn't care about any of those things, and that's what makes him so cool. By the way, to kind of piggyback on this story, before the game I saw one of the Warrior staffers, and I said, in a very concerned voice, how Klay doing? You know, I'm like, I know he's I'm thinking, oh, he's going to be out or whatever. He's like, oh, he feels great. I'm like, what?
Yeah, he literally walked out for warm-ups as if nothing had happened. And I want to point out a high ankle sprain, in case you are not familiar with the vagaries of ankle sprainedness, that keeps an NFL wide receiver out for a month.
That's crazy.
Like a high ankle sprain, you're like, oh, they're 4 to 6 weeks.
And it shows just how durable he's been over this past year. I mean, well, his whole career.
Yeah.
And he hasn't experienced an ankle injury. He's joking with Steph.
Right. He's like, oh, what does an ankle injury feel like?
What?
He's in his 7th year, and he's never had an ankle injury. It's amazing.